Hi, everyone. I think I cheered my voice out, so it may go out halfway through this. Paul Harris, the founder of Rotary, described our organization in these words. Whatever Rotary may mean to us, to the world, it will be known by the results it achieves. We are an organization that is known for our success in creating positive change in our communities and internationally. We are in the philanthropy business. I am honored and privileged to be a member of this club and working towards achieving our club's philanthropic goals. I am also fortunate to know Bruce DeBoskey, our speaker for today. Bruce is a thought leader in philanthropy. He is an expert in helping businesses, foundations, and families like mine to deploy the assets, skills, and talents to maximize the impact of their charitable work. I know that his talk today will reinforce and inspire us to do even more with our work. Bruce started his career as a trial lawyer here in Colorado. He practiced in the field for 25 years. Bruce later became an executive director of the Anti-Defamation League, where he was an exceptional leader of the organization. After 9 years of service with ADL, he expanded his career and founded the DeBoskey Group, a nationally renowned philanthropic strategy consulting firm here in Denver. He is also a successful columnist using his expertise in the monthly Denver Post column on philanthropy, which educates his readers on the topic of philanthropy and allows Bruce to connect with individuals worldwide through the digital medium. Please join me in welcoming Bruce, our speaker for today. Thank you.
Thanks, Melinda. Can I give you a hug?
Yes, you can.
I was 21 years old, traveling by myself, backpacking through a remote area of Turkey. And I woke up one morning and I heard a loud noise. It was the noise of a crowd. And I stumbled out of bed, I put on my backpack, and I walked to the town square of this little village thousands and thousands of miles from here, and I came upon a mob. About 100 people standing in a circle, laughing and jeering, and I peered over the edge from the outside to try to figure out what was going on, and in the inside of this circle was a young man about my age who was clearly and obviously mentally disabled. And the crowd was throwing rocks at him, and they were throwing cans at him, and they were teasing him, and they were jeering him, and they were making fun of him. And he was totally bewildered. And somebody came up from behind him and put a paper bag over his head and spun him around, and he had no idea where he was, and this mob roared, undulated with laughter and pleasure at this young man's misery. As I stood on the outside of this circle, every cell in my body, everything I knew said, go into that circle and rescue that young man. Protect him. But I knew that if I did that, I wouldn't come out. I was a Westerner. I'm Jewish. I have long hair and a beard. Why would I have any different treatment, and I would be powerless to make a difference in his life and would likely lose mine? So I did the only thing I knew to do, and that was I turned around and walked away, never knowing what happened to that young man, but fearing an outcome quite serious. And as I headed out of town, looking for the next bus, I said to myself, please, please, God, I don't ever want to be a bystander again. And that story, that event, stayed with me deeply inside. I didn't share it with anybody until about a year or two ago, despite the fact that I've given hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of speeches. Because it was so deep and so painful and so poignant and so powerful in my life that I honestly never told a soul until just recently. But I tell you this story really for three reasons. One is to share just a little bit about me and what has motivated me for the rest of my life from that time on. I came back to the States. I was a college graduate. I went to law school at Georgetown. I came out here and I was very active in representing the underdog in many, many, many circumstances. And then I left, as Melinda said, and I became the regional director of the ADL's Anti-Defamation League's Mountain States office. And then 4 years ago started this consulting practice in philanthropic strategy where I help people in businesses, foundation, and family settings make better decisions, more impactful decisions, more joyful and more meaningful decisions with their philanthropy. The second reason I tell you this story is that everybody in this room and everybody you meet has stories. Some more dramatic than mine, some less dramatic than mine. But the stories that inform us, that cause us to be who we are in the world today, some of which, like mine, are buried for decades, and others we wear on our sleeves. And the third reason is to suggest to you, of all people, I have the audacity to suggest to you who are committed so to philanthropy, that in today's world, in today's United States, in today's Colorado, in today's Denver, with the challenges that we face, none of us can afford to be a bystander ever in this world in which we live. So as you know better than most, one of the best ways not to be a bystander is to be a philanthropist. Not just a donor, but a philanthropist. What's the difference? A donor writes a check, gives away money or time. It's a transaction. It's an important transaction. It's a critical transaction. It's a valued transaction, but that's what it is. It's a transfer of money from one person's bank account to yet another. A philanthropist does that transaction. But prior to that transaction, engages in very careful thought and planning about why they're even giving the money away. What internal motivation? What's going on inside their business or their foundation or their family or themselves that causes them to even get to the point of writing a check? What belief system, what values are they trying to reinforce in themselves? And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. And then a philanthropist, after they write the check, doesn't stop. That's not the end. That's yet another stage, because afterwards they have to follow that money. A philanthropist tries to learn what difference are they making, what outcomes are they achieving, what impact are they having in the world, and then a philanthropist adjusts and changes and evolves in making the decisions as to how and to whom and when they'll write the check, which is the transactional part, the donor to philanthropy. So for today, for the next 2 hours, they told me I had 2 hours. For the next few minutes, I have the privilege of talking to a group of philanthropists, people who really get the difference between being a donor and philanthropy, about some of the lessons that I've learned and some of the lessons that we carry into our work when we work with businesses and families and foundations and individuals and help them be more effective. And obviously, I make the joke about 2 hours, but this is not a topic that can be easily summed up in just a few minutes. This is complicated. It's a very difficult thing to be a good, effective philanthropist. But in today's few minutes, I will try to give you what I believe are 10 steps that can make us all more effective philanthropists, whether we're giving through our business, whether we have a foundation or a donor advised fund, whether we're a family, or whether we're giving as an individual. Number one, examine your reasons for giving. We view giving through two lenses. The easy one, or the first one that people think about is, what do you want to do in the world? You want to eradicate polio. What an amazing cause. What an amazing goal. That's the external goal. We believe you should start with what are your internal goals? What are you attempting to achieve by doing something good externally in the world for your business, for your family, or for your individual? The reasons why people donate can vary widely. Compassion, gratitude, tradition, religion. In fact, my next column, which I'm writing right now, will be in about a week, is going to be about the role that religious values play, especially in American giving. Status, peer pressure, tax advantage, moral duty, setting an example, creating a legacy, and yes, sometimes guilt can be the motivating factor that people give. But it's important to examine those reasons within yourself, because then they can help shape the strategy and the goals and the methodology of your philanthropic journey. Businesses invest in communities not because they are necessarily selfless or generous, but often to recruit, retain, engage their employees, and do the same with their customers. And ultimately, investing in communities enhances the bottom line, which is the reason why the business exists in the first place. And in fact, that could be a conversation that could last for hours. We work with many businesses about why do businesses give? Why businesses whose sole reason for existing is to create profits for the owners and shareholders, why should they give any money away? And the bottom line we have demonstrated, and the studies have demonstrated, is that it's good for business to be investing in the communities in which they work. Number two, then look at the external. Then look outside and determine what impact you really want to have. Donors usually seek to help people in need, find a solution to a problem, advance a cause, or preserve something that they value. It's our view that it's much better to have a deeper impact, a tangible impact on a cause or a belief or a charity than to spread charity lightly across many, many different causes. I would give you the same advice that I would give Peyton Manning if he asked me for this weekend, and that is go deep, not wide. Go deep, not wide. And that's true for philanthropy, as I hope it is in football this weekend. Third, involve your family and your colleagues. Don't do this by yourself. In a family setting, involve your children, involve your grandchildren, involve your parents, involve your grandparents. The learnings about philanthropy, the views of the world, the values can be passed down the generations, but we find in families it can be passed up the generations. And so many people that we work with have never had the conversations about the values that drive the family philanthropy until it's too late to have the conversations. I'm working with a woman literally right now who inherited a massive family foundation created in her father's will, about which she never spoke to him. And she's the sole heir of a massive family foundation without ever having had the conversation with Dad, who created the wealth about what he wanted, what his dreams were, what he hoped for, what he prayed for, what he lived and what he died for. And that happens time and time and time and time again. So it's my view that it's incumbent upon not only the older generations to speak to the younger, but the younger generations to speak to the elder about the values that drive their family's philanthropy. In a business setting, engaging employees, customers, suppliers, and others can enhance the impact of business philanthropy tremendously. 4, get organized and develop a strategy. As with any investment, you got to develop a strategy to understand your desired outcome. You sit down with your financial planner, it's a whole discussion of the strategy to achieve your financial goals. So few people approach their philanthropy strategically in the same way. It's an investment. It has a different bottom line. It has a social outcome as a bottom line. But it's an investment in change. It's an investment in some outcome. And in order to manage your investments, you need a strategy. You may want to seek input from the various legs of your philanthropic planning strategy table. You need advice from your tax advisor. You need advice from your legal advisor. You need advice from your wealth advisor. And you can use advice from your philanthropic advisor. All 4 work together to help develop that strategy to achieve the outcomes you want from your social investments, just like many of those same experts you rely upon to achieve the results from your financial investments. 5, do some research. There are 1.7 million nonprofit organizations in the United States alone, over 500,000 of which have been created in the last decade. They have beautiful websites, they have fancy brochures, but it's important as an investor, as a social investor, as a philanthropist, to look deeply into how the organizations are really run, not just how their marketing appears, which is important, but to look deeply. Look at their audited financials, look at their financial statements, look at their lay and professional leadership, look at their IRS 990 forms online, accessible to anybody, to see how are they investing their money, how are they spending their money. I just recently discovered a foundation that's paying its directors tens of thousands of dollars to go to 3 meetings a year to give away money. That was an interesting thing for me to learn. I was very happy to know that about how they're managing the money that they're raising to give away. There are many things that you can find by looking a little deeper, and the information is out there and can be found on any IRS-approved 501c3 nonprofit. It can be found by doing your research. Number 6. Oh, before I leave number 5, accept that a meaningful percentage of your donation will go to administrative costs. Must go to administrative costs. I have donors that say, I want 100% of my donation to go to food for those children, to fill their backpacks on Friday so they don't have a hungry weekend. And then we ask, well, who's going to fill the backpacks and who's going to figure out which school and which staff members? And if you look at a nonprofit, it's not formulaic. Some nonprofits' work is much more labor intensive than others. So when people come to me and they say, no administrative, I want it to go right to program, I say you're making a mistake because you need good people in order to implement programs. And the nonprofit community is moving away from those kind of automatic litmus tests about administrative costs, fundraising costs, program costs, versus direct benefit to beneficiaries. 6, ask the so what question. Make sure that the work of the nonprofit is making a difference. A nonprofit will tell you, well, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're doing this, we're reaching this many people, we're touching that many lives, we're having this. The question is, so what? And the best example I can give you is that I gave a speech one time to all the funders for the public broadcasting, the PBS television stations across the country. And I held up their brochure. And their brochure said, We reach 87% of America's children with our educational television programming. And I looked at all these funders who were so proud of that, and I said, oh, you're the problem. You're the reason we have childhood obesity, childhood diabetes. So what? In fact, in PBS's cases, they have decades of studies that show that their educational television, like Sesame Street, makes a difference in kids' preparedness for school, their socialization, their readiness to read. It's the so what. It's not what you do, it's what impact you're having. And too few of us ask the so what question. Volunteer your time, as most of you do, as all of you do by being here today. Cash is not the only way to contribute to our community. Everyone, regardless of means, can help in some way. And volunteerism is a great way for businesses, for people to get to know each other, for families across generations to work together for a common goal, for leadership skills to develop, and for you as a philanthropist to see how the organization is actually doing its work on the ground. Number 8. This is the only don't do in my top 10, right? Don't donate over the phone or at the front door. Just don't do it. In Colorado alone, in 2007, paid solicitors, many of whom are, I'm sure, wonderful people, love their children, great people, nothing wrong, raised $187 million for charity. $187 million. Less than half of that number went to the charity. It is a business where less than half of the money goes to the charity. If you're inclined to give to an organization who's knocking on your door or ringing your phone, let it ring, do the research, go online, and give directly. There are studies across the country where that number where I said it was less than half, sometimes 95%. 95% of the gift goes to the fundraiser, not to the charity you think you're helping. Now, there are legitimate fundraisers over the phone and on the front door, but how do you know? If you're sitting there trying to cook dinner and you got 3 screaming kids and a barking dog and some really nice person, how are you going to figure out whether this is a good one or that it's not? So our advice is just don't do it. Number 9, give boldly. People rarely donate so much money over their lifetimes that they don't have enough money to take care of themselves and their loved ones. In fact, let me just ask a quick question. How many here know of anybody who ever gave away so much money that they couldn't take care of themselves or their loved ones? Just raise your hand. A couple? 1, 2? That's typical. Usually in a crowd, there's a couple. Sure, sometimes people they go on tilt and they give away too much money and they don't have enough left. Now, how many of you know anybody who died with much more money than they needed to have taken care of themselves and their heirs? Yeah, like just about everybody. People are understandably cautious about giving away too much because they do have to take care of themselves. They don't know how they're going to live. They don't know what their medical costs are going to be. That's all normal. That's all right. They want to leave something for their heirs. They want to take care. But very few of us give to our capacity. Even taking that wide risk factor into play, there's still more that we can give. I'm touched by the Navajo teaching that in the Navajo tradition, a person is measured not by what they accumulate, which is so often the case in our culture and our society, but they're measured by what they give away. Imagine that paradigm shift if we could somehow measure ourselves by what we give away rather than what we gather. And last, number 10, start today. Don't wait. Whether you're 25 or whether you're 85, The time is now. Our communities need us now. Our problems are raging today. The hallmark of younger donors today, the millennials, the ex-Genners, they're giving today. They're not waiting until their hair is gray, until they've accumulated their wealth, until they've paid their kids' college tuitions. They're starting younger. All of us can start now. Let me close, watching the clock tick away here, with a lesson that I really believe, and I learned it from a woman who wrote a great book that if anybody is interested in, I always recommend it to people. In fact, I've already recommended it once earlier today. It's called The Soul of Money. It's written by a woman named Lynn Twist, and if you're interested in the topic, it's definitely a good read. But Lynn taught me, and I've gotten to know her, so I can actually say it that way, that money is like water, right? And it can go through our lives like a raging river, or sometimes merely a trickle. But whenever money is hoarded, whenever money is locked and held in tightly, it can become toxic. It can grow stagnant. And it can actually deny life to those who hoard it. But in contrast, when it flows, not only does it replenish, because there's more where that came from, but it can purify, it can cleanse, it can create growth, it can feed and provide nourishment to those whose lives it passes through and those who get to drink it downstream. So thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you briefly today, and thank you for what you do.